welcome to a 2 a.m. podcast by yours truly, Chloe. Look, this is the first time I've done this, so don't expect what I would say as anything from me. I don't even know how long this is gonna be. I just want to talk about politics. And why I'm going insane. So let's start off with the stimulus package. Because that's totally not absolutely insane. So, my family, I guess would be classified as a family that makes under $75,000 a year. My dad's income is kind of stable, relatively unstable. It just depends on how you categorize it. It's like construction work, which is sort of stable, sort of unstable, the whole 9 yards. My stepmom works for a grading company who only grades a couple of tests every year. Like they grade like Florida tests or something. I don't know. I'm not smart. So I would say we make under $75,000. But regardless, nobody in my household makes more than $75,000 individually. And that case is true for the entirety of America as well. So the audacity of the government to say, "Ooh, 1,200's okay," and just not understand why that's the dumbest statement ever. Like, I'm very glad that they're giving full checks to people with unemployment, but I don't know, aren't we above 10% unemployment right now? And so lines are long, and we're in a recession. I get we're not in one yet, since I don't think we've hit the 2-quarter mark, but we're in a recession. So, maybe the government, instead of putting $4 trillion into major corporations and businesses that probably shouldn't fucking get bailouts, just a consideration. Maybe it should have gone to the workers, which fuel the American economy. But I can't expect more from the leadership of America. I can't expect more. And not only that, I read way too much of the bill for what it was worth, because there's about 3 sentences you needed to read for it, and that was about it. But I read some of the bill so I can help explain to a bunch of college students how they weren't going to get their stimulus check because their parents probably marked them as a dependent on their taxes because they didn't know recession was going to come. But one of them was going to get it because their sister claimed them as a dependent, but she can no longer claim her as a dependent, so it's whatever. But college kids, people who work jobs, part-time most likely, but jobs, people who rely on their college to be around or their job to be around, have gone out and not had jobs. And none of them are gonna get their stimulus check. So, I hate America. So that's great. And I am not gonna get $500 for my family, which would probably be beneficial for them since, unstable, uncertain times, people are less likely to do apartment renovations so my dad can work, and there's no more testing anymore since, MCAs or whatever standardized tests are done in all their states aren't going to happen anymore. So, unstable income, unstable times. Probably would have been cool if, parents who had a 17-year-old would actually have been classified as someone who can get $500. Or consider this: you just give $1,200 to every American citizen, and then you tax everybody who earned $75,000 back. It's such a concept. It's the easiest thing they could have done. It is so mindless that they could have just done it. And yet they did it. And yet they means tested it, delaying the process, and only so many people are going to get it now, and people who are in need aren't going to get it anymore. And I am going insane. And, of course, progressives like Bernie Sanders, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and so on and so forth, and maybe even Elizabeth Warren, would vote in favor of this bill because it's better than nothing. It's better than not giving people money when the economy's in a downturn. So, of course they're going to vote for it. Even if they tied a $4 trillion stimulus package for corporations, which, I'm just saying, if a multi-million or billion-dollar corporation can't handle 3 months of a downturn, I'm sorry. How are you a corporation? Why is your CEO making millions of dollars if you guys can't even handle a little bit of a downturn in the economy for a couple of months? And it's not even going to the workers for the most part. Most of it's just going back to shareholders, because that's what happens. That's always what fucking happens. We saw it with Trump tax cuts. We see it with fucking stock buybacks. I hate this world. I hate this world. And I know I'm not a genius. I can't even remember half the bill. But I do know that we shouldn't give money to corporations who say they wouldn't be willing to receive the money if it meant the government was going to take their money or take part of their corporation. Then you don't need the money, right? Because either you go bankrupt or you take government money, but now you're able to refuse it. It sounds like you're not going to go bankrupt. I'm looking at you, Boeing. So yeah, I'm going insane. And Corona isn't even the only thing making me fucking crazy. Which leads me to my next point. Bernie Sanders dropping out. Look, I'm a big Bernie brother and sister here. Big respect for my man Bernie. I understand he had to drop out because he does believe that defeating Trump is important, and he saw that there was little path to victory from this point on. And so the only logical conclusion would be to drop out and stop taking money from people donating to his campaign and blah, 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 blah. And yet, I get why he had to endorse Joe Biden, but I'm not happy about it. Look, Bernie had a flawed campaign. He didn't really attack people. All he did was defend himself, which is a bad position to always be in. Typically, if you have to defend your position, ideology, political preference, previous statements, you're always in a not so comfortable situation, and it's preferred that you're on the attack. This is why Kamala Harris got absolutely fucking destroyed, because Tulsi Gabbard went after her with strictly attacks. And then Kamala was forced to defend her position, but her defense was indefensible because she lied. So, I get it. Bernie should have attacked more, or whatever. And I think, truly, he's just leaving a better legacy behind, because legacy matters. If you don't spoil, or don't run spoiler, even though, whatever. I don't fucking buy into spoilers, except if they, no, I don't buy into spoilers. So if they spoil the campaign and that leads to Donald Trump's re-election, that's bad or whatever. And people would blame Bernie Sanders for it because he didn't drop out soon enough. He sowed discord into society or whatever. And he was unable to get Joe Biden elected instead of Donald Trump. His legacy would be tarnished. Socialism would also be, again, bad in American records, even though he's not really a total socialist. He's a moderate on the political spectrum, I'd say. You know? And whatever. Socialism bad. American history, socialism is always bad. Cuba's bad because they're communists, not because anything else. And it's Fidel Castro bad. It's the same fucking story every time. Forgetting to notice that maybe, just maybe, socialism isn't bad, and authoritarianism is bad. Nuanced take. But you know what else is more nuanced? Authoritarianism, while bad, can still lead to progress. Now, I know that may sound crazy, but listen to me here. Authoritarians can change the system. And this is why I had such a problem back when Bernie Sanders was, smeared for praising Fidel Castro's literacy programs, which, if they read propaganda, I don't fucking care. Literacy skyrocketed or whatever. And more people were able to read. And so, when they were criticizing Fidel Castro, an authoritarian, bad person, when they were criticizing Bernie Sanders, who praised Fidel Castro's, who is a bad person, literary programs, I nearly fucking lost my mind. I nearly lost my fucking mind. I don't think people understand that change is a thing that can happen. I know we're stuck in 1990 in American politics, except gays are allowed now. And that's not even totally the truth, since some people think being gay isn't real or being gay is a choice, and some people are biphobic and people are immensely transphobic. But we're stuck in the 90s. We've not changed. We're just doomed to repeat our mistakes over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Every time. And I, as someone who would like to think that they are level-headed and can see faults in the system, even if I, self-proclaimed insane person, feel like maybe my ideology may not be the best at times, because maybe there's something better across the aisle, or whatever, or someone has a better take than me. I can notice that the economy has been the same, and our attitudes towards the working class have been the same. We haven't given a shit about them one time, and we still don't give a shit about black people. Like, we've had the resurgence of black movements, which is great, but we still don't, as a whole, give a shit about black people and things that actually affect them. We fucking try and win brownie points in the political spectrum saying, I support Black Lives Matter, which is cool and everything. Totally fucking fine. But they're not going for police reform, and they're not going for systemic changes like ending the war on drugs. Concept. End the war on drugs. So, back to my earlier point, that we're living in a loop. Bernie Sanders was the epitome of trying to get out of the loop, and so was Donald Trump. Except Donald Trump's path still leads to some weird form of the loop. Bernie Sanders was a divergent take outside of it. It was a take that brings us towards progress or whatever. And Joe Biden sure can inch us towards progress, but I prefer a shift radical change because people's lives are at stake. So now we get a bit personal and we talk about when I try to kill myself, because I, insane person, have spent most of my life facing many mental illnesses. I have, not to flex my credentiality, I have 2 forms of depression, dysthymia and major depressive disorder. And dysthymia is just basically my average mood is still a low mood. So I never meet we drew a picture of it. So this is everybody else's average mood, and this is my average mood. It's always below the average line, and then I also jump way down. So I'm always somewhat sad. And I'm also a doomer. I also have obsessive anxiety. So I had the concept of death implanted in my head pretty young, to no fault of my own brother, because he told me about death when I was like 5. And that was when my mortality was risen. And then I couldn't stop thinking about how I could be dead. And suddenly, the thought of being dead shifted from a bad thing to a good thing. And so, over the summer, try to kill myself. Very blasé stuff. And I was in the hospital because that's what happens sometimes. It happens when your parents care about you. Thanks, Dad. And the hospital was $3,000 a day. Now, I nearly had a heart attack hearing that, and the only reason I think my family avoided paying for it, if they did avoid paying for it, still no confirmation on that fact, was because of family-tied insurance towards a job. Now, if my biological mother had not put me on her insurance because we had not been talking for nearly a year at that point, I would not be able to afford to be in that hospital, and my parents would have probably had to default on their loans or, go bankrupt. So, I'm just saying, there's a system in place in the American medical world which fucks over people so ridiculously. For one, being suicidal because money scares you, and then once you're suicidal, you get placed into a hospital where then they tell you about your money, and now you're even more freaked out, and now you want to kill yourself inside the hospital. And now that sounds insane, But let me get to my point. 60,000 people die every year because they don't have insurance. And they wait it out. And blah, 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 blah. And now, consider this. Joe Biden says that's not a national emergency. And I, someone who likes to think they're empathetic or sympathetic, says, oh, that's absolutely a national emergency if 60,000 people are dying every year because they don't think they have money to afford insurance, or it's too expensive right now, so they'll wait until later to get in to actually check up on their illness or the lump growing on their side or whatever. It's an emergency. That's just plain and simple. It's a national emergency that 60,000 people are dying every year in the wealthiest nation in the world because they don't have insurance. Now, I don't know what to say. I personally think corona, emergency or what not, should be considered a national emergency since it threatens the life of about 2% of our population, 2% of our labor force. I'm fucking stupid. I don't know math. I don't know the current corona ratios because I honestly have gone insane over it. And that sounds like an emergency as well. And now I value these two on the same level. And Joe Biden says corona, 60,000 dead a year. And I say corona, 60,000 dead a year, and maybe 60,000 dead a year, corona. Because personally, for me, if it happens year after year, suddenly the deaths from corona kind of shrink. And while they're happening in a rapid time, the accumulation of deaths of living humans that could have been alive to this day kind of outweigh currently United States stats on corona. And now that is a hot take. And I know it's a hot take, but I also hate Joe Biden. I hate that slimy, racist, possible rapist bastard with every ounce in my body. And it's not because he's a neoliberal fucking conservative conservative Democrat Republican who doesn't put any stock in what he's saying and ran in this election for no fucking apparent reason as far as I'm goddamn concerned, and just wants to run against Donald Trump, and his entire thing was like he's gonna beat Donald Trump, even though that's not how you run a campaign, first off. And second off, lefties are already considering starting a third party or joining the Green Party. So, insane that you think you can win with the party inside your party splitting. But then he doesn't have beliefs. I think one of the most enlightening experiences while watching the Democratic debates was back in September, when he said that it's not that black people don't want to raise their kids, it's that they just don't know how. And for a second in my brain, I collapsed inward and I fucking nearly lost it. Because there's some serious cognitive dissonance that must be going on inside his brain, or that he's a fucking moron. Because saying you're gonna put social workers in their houses is a little insane. Doesn't that sound crazy? And we just never talked about it ever again? And then, secondly, he was a person that at least voted for the crime bill of 94, which was harmful, probably mostly due to towards minorities. He also doesn't want to end the war on drugs, as far as I'm concerned. Let's look it up. he supports the war on drugs. So there's some failure to acknowledge his faults that are so extreme that I want to die. Like, consider that. Let me walk you through this. Let me walk you through my own incoherent ramblings at this point in time. Joe Biden supports the war on drugs. He also thinks that black families should be supported. He also supported or wrote the crime bill of 1994. Depends on who's telling the story. And yet believes black families should be given social workers to raise their kids. And now let me walk you through what I think is the better line of attack. Abolish the war on drugs, stop splitting up black families, put funding into black neighborhoods, reduce policing in black neighborhoods, and boom, suddenly something sounds right in my head. Something sounds like there's going to be less single parent homes and that kids are going to have an advantageous life because their families will be together or whatever, and suddenly maybe they'll move up in wealth because their parents don't have an incarceration record for a stupid fucking drug crime. Which, do we really want drugs to be illegal? Like, I know, I am not one to say drugs should be legal or not, because I am a teenager who hasn't so much as taken a brisk sip of alcohol. But I also realize that there's things you can do about the problem outside of just criminalizing it, because criminalizing it hasn't worked. If you feel my gist, it hasn't, what do you call it, proved to work either. It hasn't shown positive results. It's really just shown that it's incarcerated people, black people, the most, or Mexicans, the most. And personally, for me, a sane, rational human being, to the extent that I can be at this point in my life, thinks that maybe Joe Biden should support ending the war on drugs if he wants to help black families get ahead. And I don't understand how people can support him after he said that. Because his ideology at that point is so fucking torn apart that I want to cry. You get me? And then there's the whole Tara Reid allegations. And now I don't know if to believe her or not. But personally, I want to believe her. And I'm going to believe her. Because I'm not a fucking court. And I'm a human being. And I empathize and sympathize with her. Because it's a sexual assault allegation against a man who's running for president that she tried to get this story out multiple years ago, and then, try to get Time's Up to help her, release the story, and after getting pushback and no support from anybody else, she still came out with the allegation, which to me just screams, I actually believe this is a problem. And I feel like if Dr. Blasey Ford had proved any fucking thing, is no one wants to accuse someone in high power of sexual assault, because it's awful. It's awful for them, for everyone around them, and it's awful because they have to give up their lives, basically, to do it. So, I am going to take Joe Biden's words and say, believe all women. And so I'm gonna believe Tara Reid. Of fucking course I will. And that's just that on that. And the fact that, the New York Times released an article that was basically, other than the unwanted touches and kisses from Joe Biden, there's been no allegation of sexual assault. And, personally, unwanted kisses and touches kind of sounds like sexual assault, or at least sexual aggravation. And in my opinion, that's the dumbest fucking sentence I've ever fucking read, And I don't know how I'm gonna live anymore, because I get that I'm fringe and I'm outside of the Overton window. But sit with me for a second. Maybe we should just abolish the state. Because it's clearly failed us. And that sounds extreme. And it is extreme. But sit with me here for a second. The state has fucked up enormously. And I personally would prefer a different constitution to live under at this point in my life, because I don't think our current state is working. Now, if there's a state in the future that would work, I might hop on it over and become a tanky. But because the current state doesn't work, and the current state of affairs doesn't work, and the current political system doesn't work, and the current fucking constitution doesn't work right now, I think we should just eliminate it all. Just get rid of it. Because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of looking at the news every day and seeing fucking Nancy Pelosi having a message with fucking James Corden about what she's gonna give to those who struggle with coronavirus right now, and her gift is a basket of chocolates. That's any fucking thing. That's any reality she meets. She's how do we let these people run our country if they don't even understand the plights and struggles of the average working American in their country, those that they proclaim to fight for every fucking day, those that fucking are like, oh, we care about you, we're backed by you guys, we want your votes, we're the party for you people, and yet they don't understand a single fucking problem that a working class family has outside of fucking oppression, Olympic goddamn, they have to sometimes walk to the store. It's like, yeah, no shit. But do you understand the systemic problems that you're endorsing through the Republican platform and your own fucking platform that's actually causing this systemic problem, and where people aren't able to afford basic necessities like food sometimes, or shelter, the first fucking step in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Do you ever consider that, Nancy Pelosi? Have you ever considered in your one fucking life that there's actual things you could do to maybe change the system just a little bit in the name of goddamn working class Americans, which you're supposed to represent as the party leader basically right now, as the representative, the fucking Speaker of the House? But no, it just doesn't happen. And I'm more mad at Democrats than I am Republicans, because Democrats are supposed to be at least somewhat aligned with me, They're supposed to represent the working class and fight for minority rights, and that's great. I'm glad I have marriage now. It took the Supreme Court to do it, but whatever. I'm glad I can marry some hot chick that will stop my face in when I ask her to. But there's this thing called everything you could do. And they don't do it. There's a million steps they could take to theoretically, improve the lives of millions of Americans by marginal utility. Let's put 3 Americans increase support down. Brush it off. Look, guys, we did so much work for you all. I can't believe you're all still complaining after all this work we've done for you. Listen, I'm not a political genius. I know a lot about politics, and that's mainly because this is all I do. I sit and I stew and I think and I go insane. And personally, I used to be right-wing. Sometimes culturally, mostly right-wing about females, probably because of my mom. Most definitely because of my mom. But, and it's not because my mom was right-wing. It's because, mommy issues. I fucking lost my train of thought. Basically, I used to be right-wing-ish. I used to think, some people don't want to be taxed. Who fucking cares? If you get taxed, you get taxed. I personally could not care about a rich person complaining about taxes. Just a concept. And so, when you sit and stew all day and you think, that's insane. I hate this world. You start to really think about it, and you start to stew, and this is all you do all day, because of course this is all you do all day. You just sit in your fucking room and think, God, the world's falling apart and nobody understands anything, and I'm going insane. Am I insane, or is everybody else right? Am I on a different plane of existence, or are we all in the same spot? Am I a genius, or am I fucking stupid? And so you sit and stew with that singular motion train of thinking, and you barrel down to, the world's fucked, we should all kill ourselves, because either I'm insane or everybody else is insane, and either I kill myself, stop the problem, or we all kill ourselves and we let our planet and animals breathe. Because you know what, we haven't talked about climate change yet, and that's probably going to be my last topic, because still fuck Joe Biden. Anyways, climate change. I'm in favor of nuclear energy. Controversial opinion. Also very Russian opinion. Or Ukrainian, whatever. But I personally think nuclear energy will probably be safer. I'm all for my solar panels. I keep trying to convince my dad that we should definitely get solar panels, because it would be super fucking cool, and then we could be doing our part to save the planet and whatever, even though that's marginal and that's all fucking government propaganda, that we should all do our part to save the planet, even though they could literally regulate businesses and basically stop the spread of climate change. But doing my part, I want solar panels in the future. I want to own a fucking, converted school bus, a reclaimed school bus that I build with some tools or whatever, and I want to have solar panels on it, and I want to have a little garden, and I want to own a commune, because I want to make sure people have a place to sleep at night, and, can be bathed and washed down. But climate change. We put down a shit ton of solar panels, put down a shit ton of wind turbines, and we build a couple of nuclear power plants, and we shut down coal mines, shut down oil, we move all our cars to electric through government mandates, or whatever, even though we should probably just abolish the whole fucking system, and car fumes are fucking neutral compared to fucking Chinese coal industry. And we saved the planet. And this is where I bring it back to Joe Biden, because it always comes back to Joe Biden. Joining the Paris Climate Accord doesn't stop the spread of climate change. You know? Like, sure, it could help, but it doesn't stop it. You gotta do more than join something to stop a problem. And I miss Jay Inslee. Remember when he was around back in July? The climate change guy? Remember, what's his fucking name? Tom Steyer, the other climate change guy? And you know how both of them dropped out? Remember Bernie Sanders, the other climate change guy? Or, you know, fucking Elizabeth Warren, the other climate change gal? But no, we're left with fucking Joe Biden, and we're all gonna die. Basically, that's the message of this video. We're all gonna fucking die. And that's depressing. But consider this. I've been in this state of mind for the past 3 years of my life. We're all going to die. And if we don't do something about it, it's too late. So, that's great. And that's why Joe Biden upsets me so. Also, carbon taxes are fine, but they're not going to do enough. So we should probably just fucking eliminate coal power plants instead of these marginal issues that we could ease. Neoliberalism is the death of everything. You know? It's incremental changes, which gets their panties soaked. They hear a 0.1% increase in property taxes around the nation, and they fucking go insane for that. Even though, again, what does that really do in the long run? Sure, incrementalism is fine if, you're incrementally fast enough, but, when you're all fucking dying and, your grandparents might not make it out of corona or, could die any day of the week because, just health insurance things. Or, your dad could, break his back and, your family has basically no income to rely on because, he's a labor worker or something like that. When you think about that, you suddenly say, I don't really like this incremental change thing because my family's suffering at the notion of it, or at least I'm suffering at the notion of it, and my family could suffer if one bad thing happens. So maybe a bunch of other families are actually suffering from it right now, and we don't talk about that enough. I don't think we actually acknowledge that enough, and that's what makes me go insane. A lot of things make me go insane. I keep saying I'm going insane. It's because I am. At least I feel insane. And so basically, this is a cute little message to both Joe Biden and Destiny. Destiny, I really liked you debating righties, and I've watched you debate a couple of lefties, and I don't really like incremental change. I really don't. And I know that none of what I've said made sense. It's a very abstract notion of me descending into madness at 2:57 a.m. on a Wednesday, I think. Thursday now? I don't know. And, I have a class on ancient Egypt at like 10. So that's fun. But, again, I know fucking Dada art, Postmodernism, isn't this what it's all about? Rambling and not making actual art and not making total coherent sense, yet it still has a message underneath it. And so that's the point. I hate myself. And I'm pretty sure someone else watching this hates me too, because I've wasted 46 minutes of their life if they made it this far. And I'm just gonna upload this to YouTube immediately after I finish it. But this is for Destiny, because incremental change would be great if the change that they were incrementing was meaningful. Yet it never is. And I get that, I do like some of the Democrats' cultural stances. But there's still a fact that they ignore the underlying issues behind those cultural stances, I think. And I guess that's coming from a gay person. So I'd hope I could flex my credibility on that. And I went to a rally this summer while I was at Girls State because apparently I'm good at talking in front of people. That's what my teacher said. That's the reason she told me to go. And it was a bunch of African American protesters talking about their issues with the Minnesota state government not actually giving money back to the African American community. They said they put something like 24 million or 24 billion in, or something like that. I can't remember anymore. And they got like 1 million out of it. And I felt terrible after attending that, because they've been trying so hard their whole life, or at least recently, to see any real change happen for them. Anything that might benefit their communities and benefit their lives, to make it maybe just a little bit easier on them. And it got killed in the Minnesota State House of Representatives in the Democratic hands. And stories like that are more impactful for me, because people are suffering, and yes, cultural issues are important, but there's still an underlying class issue behind all cultural issues, in my opinion. Not to be class reductionist on you guys. And I think I like the Democratic Party on that one basis, and that one basis alone. And then afterwards, I want to die. Because after acknowledging that people are suffering across the nation because of their identity, which must be one of the most validating feelings ever, to be recognized for suffering, they just don't do anything about it. They don't get rid of the war on drugs. They don't tone down policing. They don't put money into black communities. They don't increase rehabilitation centers. They don't advocate for what they want. And it makes me sad. It makes me so wholly sad that I couldn't ever want incremental changes after stories like that. And that's why I have a disdain towards Destiny and towards Joe Biden. Because I think their heart's in the right place. At least I hope their heart's in the right place. And I think Joe Biden would be better than Trump. But no incremental change at this point could undo years and years and years and years and decades and centuries upon damage to certain communities. And that's where I want to end it off. Have a good day? Question mark.